like to welcome Ginny Nobis. She is our next teacher feature here in our Education 1010 text. And I just want to thank Ginny for all of the time that she has donated to our students here at Utah Tech University, with allowing our students to go into her school and do Education 1010 observation. She has been so remarkable, and her wealth of experience. I know she has been a classroom teacher. She has been a learning coach for our school district, and currently she is a principal at South Mesa Elementary School in St. George, Utah. And Ginny, welcome.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
You bet. I'm so happy to have you. We've got some questions here that I put up on the chat, and I just want to ask you a few things, and I kind of modified them for you. You're our first principal, and could be, I think I'll do one secondary principal here in this text, these teacher features. But tell me, why did you become a teacher?
Classic, when I was a little girl, I loved to play school and that type of thing. But as I got older, I really thought I'd like to be an attorney. And then I got into school and I didn't love that work. It didn't seem like it was going to be a good fit for me. And I was working for SkyWest Airlines, and I was an assistant to one of the VPs. And I thought, well, I think business would be a good avenue to go with my education. And as I got into my business classes, I thought, this just isn't for me. I don't love accounting enough to to get this degree. I love people, though. I really love people. And I started to explore my options, where I love to learn and I love people. And so I took a 1010 class. And I got to go in and do some observing and learn a little bit more about what it was like to be a teacher. I ended up marrying a man whose mother was a teacher. And so I got to talk to her quite a bit about it. And as I decided on my major, I just felt like education was really going to be a better place for me, for the type of life that I wanted, the type of person I was. I love learning. I love reading. I love people. I love seeing the light turn on, when people are learning things. And I really have like a real growth mindset. And so I love the idea of constant improvement. And so as I got into that 1010 class, that was where it solidified my desire to go ahead and move into education. And at that time, there weren't a lot of jobs. It was actually really, people were saying that I was not making a good choice because teaching jobs were few and many people were going into education. But I lucked out and got my very first job at Red Mountain Elementary. It was just opening that year. And I almost turned it down. I actually did turn it down, and then called the administrator, Betty Barnum. I called her up and I said, I think I've made a mistake. I think I should be going into teaching. And I don't know why I was thinking maybe I should just stay with business and SkyWest, but I really do think I want to be a teacher. And thank goodness she hadn't hired anybody yet. And I got that first job, and we opened up Red Mountain Elementary, and I was there for 5 years. So it was a great experience. I loved it. I loved teaching. I taught second grade, and then I taught kindergarten, so I could be part-time. Of course, that was when we had part-time kindergarten, and now we have only full-day kindergarten. But I actually went back to school, to learn how to be a kindergarten teacher, because that hadn't been part of my certification. So I started right back in the mix of figuring that out. I also got my master's degree right away. My kids were young, and I just felt like there was no better time than the present. So I just got started. And then I took a break, and I did some preschool work, did that at home. yeah, and then from there went into teaching in Michigan, and then came back here to St. George, became a reading interventionist, and then a learning coach, and now a principal. So had a wide variety of experience in education. But the core reason why I became a teacher was really because I love learning, and I really love people, and I love seeing that growth.
Awesome.
So,
So as part of your 1010 education 1010 experience, wherever it was, what institution was that?
so I was at Dixie Junior College,
At
and
1010, okay.
subsequently went into SUU for my degree. But that 1010 experience was really formative for me. You know, you think you know what teaching is and what school would be about, but going back into schools as an adult with a different lens, not as a student, but as the person that might be the teacher. It was a great experience to go in and to see just the whole process of teaching from, the beginning of the day through the end of the day, and to get to talk to teachers and educators and ask questions. That's the one thing I always encourage 1010 students to do when they come for a visit at my school. I try to encourage them to get in and interact with kids and ask questions, because teachers are more than willing to share their experience. And we do really want to grow this profession. It is a wonderful profession. It has enhanced my life in so many ways and allowed me to grow personally and professionally. And so I've loved my experience, and I hope that as you are in 1010 now, that that the students that are in 1010 now really take this opportunity to delve in and to really consider being in education, because there's a wide variety of things to do in education, and starting with teaching is the very best beginning.
Very good. I know that without fail, every semester, my students comment on the observation in the school is the best part of their whole semester. And I think that that's really what does change their whole mindset on whether or not they want to become a teacher, is that one experience that they have at an elementary and then at a secondary. And I know because we have so many levels now with intermediate, middle, and high school, eventually it would be wonderful to let them have a day in each of the levels so that they can see. But thank you for that. That's hopefully these students that are watching this, that they will really take that to heart, because I think that that's exactly what the purpose of this interactive e-text is. Its intent is to engage students so that they will want to pursue becoming a teacher. So what do you think makes you a good teacher and a good administrator?
Well, I think a lot of things go into being a good teacher, but I do think that you really do need to have a love for learning, and you need to be able to have good relationships with people. You really need to care about people, because the one thing that it's an old adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is really true in education. I've found that when I have a good relationship with my students, and I've created a safe climate and culture for them to learn, to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, and gain skills that they need to be more and more successful. That is really an important part of teaching, is creating that environment for the learning. And so I think a good teacher creates that environment. And then of course, you get into the nuts and bolts of things. You've got to be prepared. You've got to plan. You've got to know your content. And so there's a lot that goes into teaching. But I think when you set the stage for learning by creating those relationships and creating a culture of, safety and vulnerability and learning and growing, having a growth mindset, that really goes a long way for becoming a good teacher.
Okay. Well, thank you. So what is your favorite part? Well, as a teacher, and also what is your, and I know you've commented a little bit on this, but what's your favorite part as an administrator too?
You know, I love helping people through things. So as an administrator, I help kids and teachers work through all kinds of a myriad of issues that come up, you know, whether it's instructional or whether there's a student that has maybe a more difficult behavior, you know, parents making decisions about their child's education. My school is a dual language school. And so I actually have an appointment with a parent tomorrow. They want to talk about that program and they want to know more about it and understand it, so that they can make a good decision for their child. And so I think that my favorite part about being a teacher and being an administrator is just helping people work through those things and empowering them to make good decisions. Because what I really want for my students and for all people is just to, you know, I want them to have a good life, and I want them to feel fulfilled and feel like they have what it takes to tackle things. You may not get everything you want in life, but there's a lot of joy to be found by working hard and learning, accepting mistakes and growing from them. And I do really love that part of my job as a teacher and as an administrator.
Wonderful. And so just to kind of throw a little twist onto this question, because you were a learning coach, I want our students to know the different areas that they could pursue, different roles in the education arena. How was the learning coach role a little bit different from your principal role and your teaching role?
So the learning coach is such a key part of the success of a school. You know, as a teacher, every year is going to be different. And the old adage of like, you know, you just get through your first year and then you've got it all set. You'll know what to do. And then you can just repeat year after year. And it's just really not true. There's just every year is just a little bit different. Either the curriculum changes or standards, you know, are adjusted, or you have different kinds of kids and different needs. They have different needs. And so while you can have kind of a set kind of curriculum and things you're going to cover, how that gets done every year changes a little bit. And having a learning coach in the school is a key part of the success of a school, because what happens is they're able to meet with teachers and help them work through the little issues that they're having, the little questions that they have. You know, when you're up against, you know, maybe some time constraints and you can't quite figure out how to get everything in, that's where the learning coach comes in and says, well, let's see where are we spending all of our time, and can we be more efficient, or are there things that are not important for you to be doing right now? Also, a learning coach looks deeply at data. That is a big part of education now, and a little bit different than it was when I was very first teaching. It was very loose, I guess, in elementary school, as far as, you know, if they were okay, they were okay. And I didn't really have, I mean, other than maybe a test, like a chapter test, I wouldn't maybe know really if they were, I mean, if they didn't do well, then I kind of questioned if they were learning, but now we're very systematic in how we approach learning data and how we respond when we see that kids aren't getting it. If they're having a difficulty at all, that's where our learning coach and also our reading interventionist come in. That's another role that is here at school for all elementaries, and also I know intermediate schools have reading interventionists, but they're highly trained reading teachers, and they help us with learning interventions. So when we see that a student is lacking a skill, and that's what our data is showing, and that's what our observations are showing, then we make adjustments in our instruction and have them working in a skills group. And so having a learning coach be able to look through that data, dig in and go, well, what adjustments can we make to make this a better environment for students and for the teacher? They're a great sounding board, and also it's a safe place for a teacher, because as an administrator, as much as I feel like I'm approachable, I'm still the boss. And I think people are a little afraid to be super vulnerable with the boss. They don't want to let people know that maybe they're struggling, or they need some assistance in a different area. They want to come across as knowing it all. And I think that's a human condition. We all want to come across as an expert that's capable. But teaching is one of those places where you could be the most capable person in the room, and then just a wrench gets thrown at you and you're like, oh my goodness, I've got to figure this out. I don't know why students are behaving this way, or why they didn't learn this certain concept I was teaching. And that's the kind of conversations that a learning coach can have with teachers, because all of those conversations stay private between the learning coach and the teacher. So my learning coach, she coaches new teachers weekly. She just has a standing appointment with them, and they work through goals and standards and data and skills and classroom management, really anything that new teacher needs. And I don't know what they're talking about. I know the general gist of what they're going to accomplish, but it's a really great place for a teacher to be able to go, I'm really struggling here, and have there be no repercussions, nobody thinking that they can't handle it. You can handle it, and your learning coach is there to help you find some answers and help you get through. I wish I had had a learning coach. That was something that was not available to me as a new teacher. So I relied a lot on my grade level team members, and they were great. But it was all after school, on the fly. We didn't have a really great system at that time. So now we have systems built in, and we meet as teams, and there's a lot of safety in doing what your team is doing. And then your learning coach will come in and help you, just improve, make the little adjustments, so that instruction is really great and kids get where they need to go. So,
and that is something that I've noticed too over the years, how it's become more, there's been more collaboration between educators, and there's nothing better than learning from other teachers and other individuals that are good. If we all learn from each other, that we each have a little bit of something that makes us all better, we're better than we were just thinking that we knew how to do it all on our own the best way.
Yes. Agreed. And, that's the one thing, like with learning data, when we come together as collaborative teams on our grade levels, we're looking at everything, and, everybody has different kids and different strengths. And, when we see that one teacher is doing really well, we ask them, what are you doing? How is this working so well for you? And often there's just a small little tweak. They're like, oh, well, instead of having them sit down with their workbook, I had them moving around the room to different stations to work out their math problems, and a small engagement lesson made all the difference, because or a small engagement twist made all the difference in their learning, because rather than just sitting and doing, they were up and learning. So, that happens a lot in our collaborative teams. And I think that that's another thing that, if you're apprehensive at all about being able to do this job, there is so much support now. And so not only the learning coach, but the reading interventionist, especially in elementary school, it's important we learn how to read, and we're using the science of reading to teach reading. And our reading interventionists are also there as kind of the same role as a learning coach, just very defined toward reading and students that are maybe not quite getting it and how to respond in that in those situations. So
that's fantastic. Well, one more question here, and we'll wrap up. But knowing now what you know from your vast experience, what would you do differently as a teacher if you could start over, what, maybe just not just one overall thing, but if you could think back on just one piece of advice that you would give new teachers going into the profession. And I know that what you just discussed, obviously that's something that I wish that I would have had back years ago. But what is something that you would recommend, that knowing that what you know now, that you would do differently?
I think that going into education now, if I was going in now and thinking about my experience that I've had, I think that I would tell people to be less afraid. You know, be bold, and be vulnerable. It's totally fine to not know everything. I went into teaching and I was afraid I was going to fail in some way. And it's a scary thing to go into a classroom of kids and have all of the weight of that on your shoulders. But there are so many supports. And I think I would just tell my past self to not be afraid to take a chance on education and dive in and learn. And I think setting those classroom expectations and having a good management plan to start. If you had that set up before you even worry about what you're teaching, that will go miles. So it's the thing that I think sometimes is, especially if you're going into secondary education, you think, I know my content, and so I'm going to be a good teacher. But if you don't have those classroom expectations, it's really hard to get through the day. And so I think setting those expectations up early and talking to people about what they do. Every teacher will do it a little bit differently, but you got to find the way that works for you. But be firm and don't be afraid to, make kids toe the line. They are going to do well if you have high expectations for them. And so being their friend or worrying if you're going to hurt feelings, you build that relationship so that when you do have to say something hard, or a kid is struggling in some way, that they trust you, that you have their best interests at heart. So that was kind of a lot, but
No, that would be, as far as having taught secondary my whole career, up until my university experience, that's actually like post-secondary, but that would be the best bit of advice I can think to give to a secondary teacher. Is it's not about the content, it's more about having a plan and classroom management, and just being bold and having confidence that you can go in there and you're not the student's friend, you're their teacher. And it's more difficult to think that you're going to change their academic lives because of your content, than actually focusing on managing the class and having a good experience in the classroom. But I think that I agree with that 100%. And I wish somebody would have told me that at the beginning. I would have saved me a lot of consternation and problems that came after, without planning for those problems before they happen. But I've had a wonderful career also. But well, thank you so much, Ginny. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you participating in this interview, and hopefully we'll be able to get into this textbook and we can use it shortly here in the fall with the fall semester. But thank you.
Of course. Best of luck to everyone. I hope you choose teaching. It's a great career.